Hi, I'm James.
And I'm Laurent.
And this is Beatty, our little Pomsky.
And like a lot of Pomskies, Beatty is fairly picky when it comes to food.
Let me rephrase that. Very picky.
We're used to seeing dogs that seem to be hungry all the time. You just put food in their bowl, any food, and they just gobble it down like there's no tomorrow.
But that's unfortunately not the case with most Pomskies.
Beatty is very particular when it comes to food.
And making her eat her food is a battle.
In this video, we're going to show you all our bag of tricks to make our picky eater eat her food.
So let's go! So first of all, let's talk about what being a picky eater really means. It's not just that there's food she likes and food she doesn't like.
If only things were that simple.
If things were that simple, we would just need to identify food that she likes and only give her that food all the time.
The problem is that she gets bored easily when we give her the same food over and over again.
Wait a minute, Daddy. You think I'm going to eat the same food every day for the next 15 years? That's not how I roll, Daddy.
So our tip number 1 is to rotate her food.
In addition to finding food she likes, we also have to rotate her food periodically.
So that she never gets bored with her food.
Otherwise, we'd be back to square one and constantly have to identify new food she likes.
The solutions that have worked for us might not work for every dog. Beatty is picky, but some Pomskies are crazy picky.
And to some extent, this video is going to talk about parenting philosophy. Are you one of those parents that force feeds your kids their broccoli? Or do you just cave in and feed them pizza to make your life easier?
There's a fine line between dealing with the reality that Pomskies just tend to be pickier than most breeds when it comes to food, and creating a monster that throws a tantrum if they don't get what they want.
We always talk about the fact that the husky gene is dominant in Pomskies, and Pomskies seem to be 90% husky and only 10% Pomeranian.
But there's still a little bit of Pomeranian in every Pomsky, and Pomeranians are known for being manipulative and eventually get what they want if you allow them to.
So we tried to find a happy middle that works for everybody.
So there are several ways to feed a picky Pomsky.
The first step is, of course, to identify food that she likes and food that she doesn't like.
And of course, the food that she likes tends to be junk food or expensive food, and the food she doesn't like is the food we prefer to give her.
We feed her kibbles because kibbles are a lot cheaper than wet food.
Unfortunately, even though she likes her kibbles, she eventually gets bored with them.
Beatty is only 22 pounds, and a big bag of kibbles happens to be 22 pounds as well, so a bag will last around 3 months.
And there is no way she will eat the same kibbles every day for 3 months.
So after a while, we have to mix her kibbles with something else.
Even though Beatty loves her kibbles mixed with her wet food, we still need to rotate flavors after every bag of kibbles and every can of wet food.
Rotating flavors is super important to make sure your dog doesn't get tired of eating the same old food all the time.
When we open a new can, Beatty gobbles it down the first couple of days, but then the novelty kind of wears out and she's not as excited by the time we get to the end of the can.
But luckily, Koha has lots of different flavors. When we finish a can and need to start a new one, we just have to pay attention and not give her the same colored can.
Every time we throw away an empty can, we just put a new can in the fridge for the next day, and we make sure it's not the same colored can.
And we try to keep some variety in her diet. And here's our tip number 2.
One strategy is to mix her kibbles with treats or real meat, hoping that the treats will get her appetite going and that she will continue with her kibbles once the treats are gone.
Unfortunately, the problem with treats or pieces of chicken is that it's very easy for her to cherry pick the treats within the kibbles.
And once she's done with eating the treats, she just stops eating and won't even touch the kibbles.
Gotcha, Daddy. Ha-ha!
So mixing treats or real meat hasn't really worked out for us.
A much more effective strategy is to mix wet food with her kibbles. And mixing wet and dry food is our tip number 3.
If you stir kibbles and wet food long enough, you end up with some kind of stew where the wet food coats every individual kibble.
That way, it becomes impossible for her to eat the wet food without having to eat the kibbles at the same time.
And the wet food we use to do that is Koha. Koha is one of our favorite brands, and they've sponsored several of our videos.
Wet food is a lot more expensive than kibbles, but the beauty of Koha's wet food is that we only need to use a little bit.
Beatty loves the taste of Koha, but we love the texture.
We've tried a lot of brands of wet food, and Koha is a bit softer and has been easier to mix.
Because of the texture, we don't need to use a lot of it, and a can like this one normally lasts us a whole week.
If you want your dog to try Koha wet food, You can visit their website at cohapet.com.
And if you use the promo code Pomsky20, you'll get 20% off your first order.
And the promo code works even if your dog is not a Pomsky. If your dog is really picky, you may need to use more wet food than we do, or even only use wet food and no kibbles at all.
But mixing the two has been working out great for us.
Another thing you can do is turning meals into a game. And that's our tip number 4.
You can use puzzles like this one to hide food and get your Pomsky excited about eating.
We have a whole video about our favorite puzzles, and we'll put a link to that video right here.
Or you can also use homemade toys like a plastic bottle. And we also have a whole video about DIY toys, and we'll put a link to that one right here.
We know some Pomsky owners have had success in feeding their picky eater by hiding food in these puzzles.
For us, it hasn't worked out so well. Beatty loves her puzzles, and she loves playing with them.
They've truly been a game changer for us.
But she's used to playing with them to get treats, not real food.
If we just put kibbles in her puzzles, she won't be interested in them.
What we can do is put a mix of treats and kibbles, but it only works if the ratio is like 75% treats and 25% real food.
So that's not really been a solution for us.
But we know it has worked out for a great deal of Pomsky owners, so you might want to give that a try.
One positive aspect of having a picky eater, though, is that we can free feed her. And free feeding is our tip number 5.
We just leave food in her bowl all the time, and she just eats whenever she's hungry.
We know there is zero risk she's going to overeat and become fat. It's actually the opposite problem that we have to pay attention to.
So those are the tricks that we've been using to make our picky eater eat her food.
If you have other tricks we didn't mention, please put them in the comment box below.
You might be helping a new Pomsky parent struggling with their picky eater.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to get a lot more Pomsky content.
And give this video a big thumbs up.
It helps us a lot to get our video promoted by YouTube.
Bye.
Bye.
Beatty says bye.